Good morning. How's it going out there, folks? Welcome back here to a Wednesday morning, 11:34 a.m. That's California time here. August 6, 2025 is the date. Latest activity shows a 1.5 earthquake here across California. A little bit of movement happening down there overnight and this morning here, right around the Fontana Trend area is what they call it. But also we got a cluster here of earthquakes right off the San Andreas Fault here, the southern segment. That's where a 3.7 earthquake struck this morning, about 2 o'clock local time here, 3.7, and there's been a number of earthquakes in there. Gotta watch that, folks. I mean, I don't recall the last time I seen something just like with a swarm right off the southern branch here of the San Andreas Fault. Around the Fontana Trend area, that's what they call it because of clusters of swarms, but this specific area here, just off that locked area of the San Andreas Fault, is a little interesting. We got to watch that closely. The Fontana Trend area, again, it's an area of seismic uptick. It gets swarms on occasion, but when we see other swarms around a major plate boundary here that has not had any rupture in a sufficient amount of time, well, we got to take stuff seriously here. You know, a lot of people are commenting, well, a three-pointer, that happens every day. Not really. We don't see multiple threes in a 24-hour period here. In fact, the last couple days has been elevated. There's a segment down here, the extreme southern branch here around the Salton Sea area northward, that has not ruptured in over 300 years. Now, the last big one on the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault was 1857 with an M7.9 earthquake. Now, this entirety here, the southern branch, which includes this little dark section here, that's an area that did not rupture back in 1857. So this has been building up steam. And when this goes, it will take this portion with it as well as an 8.1 earthquake due to the length here of the extended rupture. That is what they're talking about. Either way, a 7.9 would be quite damaging. But this area down here, 300 years, over 300 years actually. Average intervals around this area of the San Andreas Fault run about 150 to 180 years. So look at where we're at in time period. We are way beyond those regular intervals. So we got to watch this closely here, folks. There's been so much shuffling around of the Pacific plate here recently. It has to have an adverse effect here on the plate boundary itself, where the North American and the Pacific plate interact, right? So we got to watch these swarms. There's aside from the swarm right off the southern branch here of the San Andreas Fault, we have another one to the southwest. So it's not just like in one area. This is a sign here of an overall pressurization event going on here, increasing pressure. We don't get these earthquakes because pressure is backing off, right? You guys remember over here when we've seen those hundreds and hundreds of earthquakes of magnitude 4s and 5s, a couple 6s, even a 7.4. All those earthquakes there were a sign of increasing pressure in the area of Russia last month here, end of July. And then the 8.8 struck some 10 days later following a huge increase in earthquake activity, right? So when we see elevated earthquake activity, it doesn't mean things are relieving strain, that it's backing off, that we're good now. No, it's a sign of increasing momentum and pressure out here in the area. And these little earthquakes really don't do anything in terms of relieving the big strain out here along the plate boundary. So here's this little swarm outside of Ontario here, about 3 miles deep. This one is a little bit more sufficient than the, a little bit more, what's the word I'm looking for? Heavy in terms of magnitudes and the multitudes out here this morning. About 1 o'clock this morning is when things started stirring up out here amongst many areas. This is just one of them. Start off with a 3.5, 3.2, bunch of ones in there, another 3.4. The latest a 1.4, and it came to a stop there about 6 o'clock this morning, roughly about the same time that this area came to a stop. So it's during times of elevated seismic activity out here that we do need to watch and possibly watch for movement here along the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. All this was stirring up, and there's a decent distance here between the two. One's right off the San Andreas Fault here on the North American side of the plate boundary. Other swarms here on the west side, on the Pacific side of the plate boundary. All about the same time here. So things are getting tight out here. along the San Andreas Fault. And with the amount of time that has passed, the amount of shifting going around here along the Pacific Plate recently, a lot of movement here on the North American Plate, I wouldn't doubt it if we see this soon. Some type of large event here on the San Andreas Fault. Just an observation. Yes, we have swarms out here, but like I say, one of these times here during these elevated events, we're going to see it trigger the big one out here. And that's, if you look at the 2.5 model and above, just in the last 24, and there's actually another earthquake way up here outside of, look at Lake Tahoe dried up. Not for sure. There it is. I was wondering where Lake Tahoe went to. I guess that's what it would look like. There is some fault systems, by the way, underneath Lake Tahoe. But this 2.5, a little bit further south there. But either way, specifically down there in Southern California, you got 6 earthquakes of, well, most of them are above the 3.0 range. And it's been a little bit elevated out here in terms of the 2.5 count and above in the last week across this area. And most of this is stirred up, believe it or not, following the 8.8 there in Russia. I always talk about how a lot of times the bigger earthquakes out here can relieve strain across the west coast. Well, in this case, with it being up north like that along the Kuril-Kamchatka, that 8.8, I think it added further strain out here just with that adjustment that's going on. So we do have to watch areas along the west coast for some larger movement. That's coming up. Let's see here. Aside from these little areas, there's that earthquake from yesterday, 3.5. 2 separate swarms here. Some earthquake activity down south, including this one, little 1.5. It's just interesting how this kicked up roughly at about the same time, and then came to a halt there at the same time. Look at that. It was bouncing back and forth here between 2 different regions. Got about 10, 15, maybe 20 miles or so in between these areas. Yeah. All right. Further up north, got a little bit of movement along the Garlock Fault shear zone. The Parkfield segment here of the San Andreas Fault, still pretty quiet. Get a little cluster going on up here along the creeping section. That means that things are on the move. Notice this stirred up this morning as well, roughly about the same time as these quakes down south. So this may seem like a large chunk of land to us, and it is, right? Imagine walking from the Salton Sea up to the Bay Area, or even driving. That's a heck of a drive, right? But in terms of plate tectonics, this is only a fraction, a very tiny piece of the cake, so to speak, of the Pacific Plate. Right? Just a little fraction, but that little fraction there can make life in this area not so pleasing, right? And it's been building up quite a bit of steam here for a number of years, as I showed you guys here on the map. These are times since the last big rupture. This is the center portion here. That includes the creeping section and the Parkfield segment. That can sometimes rupture in some big earthquake activity as well. But specifically the Parkfield section, let me go back over here and show you guys this area that's been pretty quiet here. Right about, stretches about, right about here up to the creeping section. It's just a small portion. That normally has earthquakes of magnitude 6.0 every 20 to 22 years. And the last one was back in 2004. So much time has passed since we've seen major adjustment here across the plate boundary. Yes, we've had earthquakes inland and away from the plate boundary, but the plate boundary is a major stress builder out here. And that's where you see some of the bigger quakes. And that's the area that has the most time since rupture activity on it. So this whole area very well set for a big earthquake. The question is when. It's just got to be prepared. Do not be complacent. One earthquake off the Hayward Fault, and that's an area that's past its time as well in terms of the last big earthquake. We've covered this a number of times in the last videos, in previous videos. 1.6 just off the northern end here. Little speculation or theory that this may be connected underneath the bay to the Rogers Creek Fault, which would make it a more lengthier fault system, right? Capable of producing a 7.5, maybe even stronger. But the Hayward Fault in itself is a very hazardous fault system, and it's well overdue. It's It's our time here soon, I feel, folks. I live out here myself up in Chico, so San Andreas Fault down there, we'll probably feel the 8-pointer when that does hit, or even a big earthquake in the Bay Area. I remember feeling the 1989 earthquake. I lived outside of Chico here, and I remember feeling that one. Not big, but the one that would shake us up out here in Redding and Chico, northern Sacramento Valley, would be a Cascadia rupture out here. Even if it's a partial rupture of the southern end, we would definitely be, we would be feeling it. But we got, that's another thing that's well overdue, right? We talk about so much overdue. California, West Coast, Pacific Northwest. It could be our time here soon. A lot of time has passed on the Cascadia. Nothing showing up here on the map as far as today goes. The last earthquake, a 2.9, around the Mendocino Fault Zone here. We've been getting a number of earthquakes up here into the southern end of the Cascadia here recently. A couple right on it, some deeper. A couple up north as well along the locked area at the Cascadia Fold and Thrust Belt. Just got to be on guard here, folks. So much time. So much time. Time. Life is about time, right? So, and how you get this strain building up out here is a lot of time, and a lot of time has passed. It's all about time. Do we have time? Okay, let's not go that far. Let's see here. A couple earthquakes outside of... let's see, one over on the Seattle Fault. That's another one that's had thousands of years since the last big rupture out here. And that goes directly underneath the Seattle area, capable of a 7.5. I believe it's a little thrust fault over there. But, again, that's one of many that could potentially be overdue here. Nothing big happening. Mount Rainier, we got one earthquake from yesterday. I find that hard to believe. That's why we have to go over here and check, double check the seismograph stations here. I know they've been doing something with the amplitude here. I don't know if they're doing it on purpose for a nice funny show when they watch my videos, but look at this. This is squashed completely. Look at these lines here. You can't even see anything showing up on it, and that is intentional. I guarantee you, because it didn't look like that before. Let me show you guys. If we were to go back here to the middle of August, that's what the seismograph station is supposed to look like, right? You can see when earthquakes are happening, not completely flatlined. So the thought that no earthquakes are occurring whatsoever at Mount Rainier, just by looking at the seismograph station, yeah, one would assume that there is none, but when you have the amplitude properly set, that's what it should look like. This was about... when was this? The 16th. The swarm started on the 8th of July. And that, let me show you guys here. We'll go on the 9th. And it was pretty decent. There was hundreds and hundreds of earthquakes out there at Mount Rainier for a number of days. And it has died down, but not like we're seeing it right now. The adjustment that they did took place. See, this is just on the 1st of August. They did something between then and, let's see, it was on the 2nd. See if I can find out when they made the switch. 2nd, here's the 3rd. 3rd's good. You still seeing earthquake activity out there, right? All these little spikes are earthquakes. Lots of them. The 4th, I have a feeling we're going to... Okay, there's the 4th. Still earthquake activity out there. The 5th looks like when they did something here. They squashed the amplitudes to this current time period, which is the 6th right now. Hello. That's kind of weird. Now it's not working when I go to click on it. There it is. Okay, so this is current up to about noon. This is West Coast time here. So as you can see, there's there's something fishy going on here with whoever's adjusting this. They may be doing it on purpose. I don't know. I can't see any reason why to flatline the seismograph stations like that. Let's see if the other one has been messed with. I say messed with because it looks like someone intentionally messed with it. This here is starting to look a little suspicious here now. The earthquake activity is going to look something like, those really fine spikes there. Little. Let's see if I can find one. Maybe one here. But these events are starting to look like there might be some type of deeper or far away events happening there. Because this seismograph station there at the surface level will pick up deeper quakes, but it will look like it's farther away from the seismograph station. So I'm starting to think here that may be what's going on. Let me check out the previous day. Yeah, see there's a couple earthquakes there in the black line. But these events, I'm starting to wonder if that's not some bigger movement happening down below this area. Maybe this thing is starting to get fired up. So I'm going to have to keep checking back on that. I may write these guys and find out why they've adjusted that. Another way of looking at the seismograph stations, and you think it would be the same, is through the USGS here. The other one was from the PNSN network, but I did not mean to go to Yellowstone. I wanted to go up here to Mount Rainier and check out the seismograph station up there, which there's a couple. GPS, by the way, that's offline. That would be beneficial if we had it online. Here's their station as well. And it does look like the same data, right? Everything's squashed, but the lines are thicker. But something, some amplitude difference there happened in the last couple days. Now let's see if this one is still online. That one's online. See, but these readings right here, those are interesting. They look like some type of deeper movement. Something you would see associated with a volcano that's stirring up. So I'm going to watch that here. It looks like it stirred up here in the last few hours, about 7 o'clock this morning or so. And again, that's at Mount Rainier Volcano in Washington. This is a previous time. If we go to today's time, you can see it on this as well. See these readings? It looks like it's something happening away from the seismograph station, maybe possibly down below, because there's really nothing stirring up over here. Let's see. Yeah, they're showing nothing happening today. But like I said, that's not necessarily true. Interesting. I'm going to have to watch that. The way you can tell if these are actually some type of volcano quakes or maybe magma activity way down below is if there's like a period like this of readings like this every day at 11 o'clock or noon, say tomorrow we come back here and it's exactly the same way and then it dies off, then that means it's something of like man-made, maybe who knows what could make this noise on the seismograph station around the area. But if that doesn't show up again similar like that tomorrow, and this continues overnight this morning, then backs off, then maybe continues at different times, then I'm thinking something is happening there at Mount Rainier. The seismographs, or the GPS stations there, let's go over here and check that out, see if we got any new changes there at that volcano. It's still current. This is a very small measurement here of any type of inflation or deflation. This ain't even up to 1 meter. This is 0, and look at this reading, 0.005 of a meter. So that is it's tiny, right? So there's no difference in terms of inflation or deflation going on here recently, or in the past 5 years. It looks like here on the bottom. So that is good, but like I say, there's some readings up there that are showing up kind of interestingly. This one here, this is another seismograph station nearby. I guess we're seeing a little bit of it, but on a smaller note compared to this station up here where those readings are a little bit more prominent. So why it would show up over here and not down there, like I say, it's something. This one up here is really not picking it up either. So you would think, though, if it's volcanic activity, it would definitely be showing up there on quite a few seismograph stations, unless it's just Like I said, I don't know why it would just be one. Anyway, we'll continue to check back on it. Earthquake activity. There's no major increase in earthquake activity, but there's still earthquake activity occurring. I'd just like to know why this one got adjusted like that. All right, let's move on. Past that, let's see here. Any further quakes down here? Doesn't look like it. Yellowstone National Park. Latest quake shows a 2-pointer out here around the Hebgen Lake Estates. Not a whole lot going on there through Yellowstone right now. Just a couple smaller quakes there. Ooh, look at this. New Madrid seismic zones showing up a little bit. 1.5. Here in the last week, we've seen 4 earthquakes there. Oh, excuse me. 6. How did I count 4? 4 equals 6? No. So the largest was a 3.1 here, it looks like, on the first. A lot of movement happening out here. You're hearing about odd quakes in New York. The North American plate is on the move. Like I say, that 8.1 may not have relieved strain out here, but it definitely got the North American plate here into motion. And it's definitely showing across many areas out here. Nothing up there in New York for right now. Oil fields of Texas still getting hit. Let's see what we got here for the world view. There's a 4-pointer way up into Alaska right now. Kilauea Volcano real quick. Let me show you guys. It erupted this morning. And there might be a couple new vents, according to what I read here. Small cluster. The southernmost vent is a new fissure that opened up around 1:12 a.m. Hawaii time this morning. So got some changes going on there. Instead of just the north vent popping, we got more fissures opening up there across the area of Kilauea Volcano, where it's still fountaining a little bit, not as high. But this one, this last event here was a little bit different. I noticed that it seemed like it was migrating a little bit, or maybe trying to form a new area to bust through up here. And obviously that's what took place here because of a couple new fissures there on the south side, the south vent. Same general area across that crater wall, but things are starting to build up here. Eventually this will get blocked off, sealed up, so to speak, and the lava could find the magma could find its way to the surface from some other place, or it may get diverted off of the area. But definitely interesting here. We got some changes going on there across Kilauea Volcano. Let's check out the deformation data, see what it looks like. There's our eruption right here. That's very normal. Looks like we should be coming to an end here pretty soon, as far as that current ongoing eruption there at Kilauea Volcano. And then from there, we'll see what happens. But it's been a rinse and repeat. Here's a little migration. Notice that it was starting to peak, and then it got diverted somehow, and then it really kicked up. Maybe things are starting to change down below there a little bit. That's why it's going to be important to watch the next inflation chart here, see what it looks like. But either way, rinse and repeat. That was episode 30. That's been ongoing since the end of last year in December. Just a rinse and repeat. Pretty crazy, pretty neat. But yeah, we'll see what happens here for the next setup. Russia area, still seeing some aftershock sequences there. There's that. Well, actually, they had a. Looks like they had another 5.8 here this morning, about 3 o'clock this morning. Number of 5s in there. Quite a bit of earthquake activity. Goodness. Look at all these earthquakes. Absolutely. I'm kind of curious here. See where we're at. Should we check the earthquake catalog here and see where we're at for as 6.0 and above goes? I just want to see how we're looking. I'm going to go back here to grab my wireless keyboard here. Just the beginning of the year. And I want to see where we're at compared to our typical average. I'm sure we're above average right now. So custom 6.0 and above. Beginning of this year. World view. So we've got, quite a few earthquakes here. There's the 8.8 being the largest. We've got 7 earthquakes of magnitude 7.0 now. 7 earthquakes of magnitude 7.0. On average here, we should see 15 each year. So we're still technically a little behind in terms of that magnitude. There's our 8.1 or 8.0. Of course, that was an 8.8 there in Russia. That should cover it for the year, but there's been some years where we've seen a couple 8-pointers in the year time span. And possible since we hadn't really seen any 8-pointers since 2021. So there's a 4-year gap. We could be talking about another 8-pointer, maybe even a couple more this year. Don't be surprised. 130 earthquakes of 6.0 to 6.9. So far we've had, let's take away the 7 there, and 8. We've had 78 earthquakes of magnitude 6.0 to 6.9. So 78. That's not. That's actually just about a little bit higher than average. Or maybe right around average or so. We're already halfway past a year. So right on cue. I'm not going to go and count 1,000, 1,300 earthquakes, but yeah. Either way, I told you we'd start to catch up. A month ago, well, maybe about a month and a half ago, this wasn't happening. It looked pretty quiet out here. A little uncertain on if we were going to even see an 8-pointer, but things are slowly starting to catch up everywhere but the west coast out here. A lot of movement happening. New Zealand down here in that seismic gap zone as well. I'm a little bit more, well, either one of these could strike because this has been hundreds of years since the Alpine Fault, even longer for the Hikurangi subduction zone. Man, Cascadia, San Andreas Fault, they're all primed right now for big earthquake activity. So when I kind of point out these swarms, there's a reason why the importance of it is at its right smack dab. At least one of them was this morning on the southern branch of the San Andreas Fault. It did not trigger the big one. Obviously, we would know about it, but I feel like we're getting close there. Japan area, some older activity there from yesterday. Newer activity down across the Indonesia region. Nothing big going on. Also got some newer quake activity across the Mariana Islands. That has been pretty quiet there, but 4.7 showing up, fairly recent. As far as New Zealand goes, still rocking with some 3s. Mainly comes to a stop right there in between North and South Island. The Alpine Fault, though, is fairly well locked and loaded for a big earthquake. So just watch that. 4.9 further down south. Hawaii's also been getting a lot of earthquake activity down here. Some underneath the area of the Kilauea Volcano, and this has to do with the new fissure activity being formed. Very shallow earthquake activity, and that's something new. Like I say, there's some changes happening over here underneath the area that could alter the next eruption sequence. Obviously, with the new fissures being formed there, something's changing. Deeper activity underneath Pahala, that's very typical. But we'll continue to watch that. Let's see here. There's a 4.3 off the coast of Mexico right now. And the red flag. South America, really nothing big going on. The Atlantic, a few earthquakes out around the Azores area, it looks like, out in this triple point boundary. Not seeing anything big out there. It looks like a couple 3s and maybe some 2s. Aside from that, just be on guard. Let's go ahead and check out space weather activity, see what's happening here on the sun. We are sizzling. Well, technically we're sizzling out here in California. It's supposed to be close to 100 today, but look at this. We're getting numerous flares almost up into the M flare range. I did upgrade my X flare. I think I put it at about 10% chance or so. But I think here, looking at the stair-stepping event, we could see an X flare here soon. So let's take a look, see where the sunspot activity is coming from, or flaring activity is coming from. I believe the main source is back over here. Well, this is actually directly facing the Earth, but there's a couple newer regions here that are glowing or bright on the UV image of the sun. Let's take a look here at the magnetogram image. See, 4168 starting to get big here. That's what you want to watch out for in terms of stronger flaring. This area over here that popped up out of the blue is starting to get large as well. This one, look at that, a whole bunch of individual cores kind of wrapped up here in a circle. That's getting some complexity on it. So we're starting to enter into a little bit more active period here on the sun in terms of flaring activity. Also, we do have a coronal hole number 69 that's just about ready to turn into the Earth-directed view. That is shooting out some high-speed solar wind stream, which should stir up the auroras here in a number of days. Let's go check out the... Is this the right one? Yes. See if they put out forecasts here. They did. So there was a CME that was blasted off here yesterday or the day before. Let's see if it's going to hit us. The sun here in the yellow, Earth in the green. There's high-speed solar wind stream. That looks like it's going to hit us on the... pretty soon, along with maybe a CME, just barely clipping the CME. But it does look like we'll see some elevated conditions here with the arrival of the high-speed solar wind stream from that coronal hole, along with a CME. Not necessarily arriving at the same time, but pretty darn close. Not really impressed with the plasma density, but we should see maybe some aurora activity coming up here. Looks like around the 7th or 8th UTC time. It's coming up pretty soon. Kevin should have an update here on this. Looks like maybe tomorrow coming in. KP index of 6. Look at that. So this is for tomorrow night. Not so much tonight, but the arrival of the high-speed solar wind stream and that CME should make the auroras quite likely up there across the northern tier states. Definitely into Canada and Alaska, Greenland and Iceland like normal. But here's a view line down into some of the northern tier states here. So we'll definitely watch for that tomorrow night. Beautiful moon out there. May go outside and get some more moon shots tonight. Overall flare threat, 55% chance for an M flare, X flare around 10%. That's probably fairly reasonable looking at the growth there of a couple different sunspots. And, well, we got at least one directly facing Earth. Quick glance here at the next close approach asteroids from the NASA website. See if anything is going on here. This one's under 1 million miles, but still that's fairly safe. There's a big one, 300-foot building-size asteroid, but that's 3 million miles away. Either way, looks like all of these, except for this one here, were recently discovered. Always discovering new asteroids every day. A quick glance here at the Storm Prediction Center. As far as severe weather goes, not a whole lot happening today, folks. Just a little marginal risk here across portions of the Dakota, stretching over to the Iowa area. Nothing for tornado activity, mostly wind, and just a very small chance here for some damaging hail across those 5% zones. Tomorrow, a little bit more active up into North Dakota. Got some tornado threat up there, 5 and a 2% chance there. Some spinning water vapor. Got some big-time wind and some big-time hail threats out there tomorrow as well. So that's for the day on Thursday. So just watch out for that. As far as any hurricane statuses go here on the weather model forecaster here, you know, take this with a grain of salt here. It's just things can change, but I do like to check the patterns out here, see if anything is going to be stirring up. Still got, look at that massive hurricane. Been watching that. There's definitely picking up on something around the middle of August. This is showing an Atlantic hurricane, but getting diverted off to the east here. So that is good. But a couple days ago, it was showing this system directly entering into Gulf, going over Florida. You know, these things can change here in the blink of an eye. The thing is, there's definitely some type of tropical system that the models are picking up on. Major uncertainty on where it's headed, though. But we'll continue to check back on that. Seismograph stations out there. Earthquake there in Russia. A little bitty one. Nothing big. For now, where's my ANZA station down south here? There's a couple spikes here showing up. That's in Southern California. Like I say, just be on guard. Swarming activity around the southern branch here. Just nothing to mess around with, folks. That's can definitely trigger this area that's well strained. All right, I'm out of here. We'll catch you guys out here a little bit later on this evening for the Wednesday night update. Have a good one. Stay safe out there, folks.